Alright, I'm going to show you how to do some cool tricks with images. Um, so one nice thing to know is you can make a background image out of any element you have on a page. So I'm just going to add a new div um, to the page. Div's just a generic thing. And then typically we can use a thing called a class or an ID to make something we can identify in CSS. I'm going to use our first ID. Just imagine I only have IDs are for things that only exist once on your one page. So I'm going to go ahead and make this thing called ID equals mums. Alright, and I'm going to delete my old image file. So right now, if I run this, I don't see anything because this is an empty div. I'm going to come into CSS now, and I select an ID using the hashtag. So that says select the thing called mums. And the first thing I could do is decide how big I want it to be. So I'll just go ahead and make mums 200 by 200 square, make it red. So now we can see mums is a square. Instead of doing the background red, I can do the background using a URL and then paste the file name there, mums.jpg. So now my image is the background. And almost always if you're doing this, what you want to do is change the background size to be what's called cover. And now your background will fill the square that you made, however big it is. I'll show you one other option. Background size contain would make it fit in there, and then by default it repeats. You probably would then want to do background repeat. No repeat. And then your image would fit in the box, however big the box is. But I think almost always what you want is cover. And if you're covering, you don't have to worry about repeating it because it makes it as big as it needs to be to cover the size. So now you can choose your image size simply by changing the width and height. So if I said, oh yeah, I want this to be 300 pixels or 400 pixels, or if I wanted it to be a banner across the top, I could make it resize. So now it's dynamically sized and it just fits, and you'll notice that the image gets automatically cropped as it sizes. So often for images in our web pages, if we want to use them as design elements, what we really want to do is be able to put a square somewhere or a rectangle somewhere on the page and then resize it. Another nice trick to know is, like, for example, if I go back to just having the square, and let's imagine that I was going to put this next to a header. So let's say that I had a h1 hello world, and I had a header, and then I had mums inside the header. Oops, I gotta move my comment now where the image is. CSS comments look a little different than HTML comments. Okay. Go ahead and format that. So now I have a header, hello world, and mums. And I'm just gonna make my header into a flex box so that we have hello world and mums next to it, right? Lovely. Something like that. Okay. Now you'll notice that having a big square in your design often looks bad. So you can use a thing called the border radius to make this kind of nicer. So I could put a border radius of, let's say, 20 pixels on, and it will round out the square if you like that rounded square look. There's also, as that radius gets bigger, your circle or your square gets to look more and more like a circle. If I made it the radius into half the width of this square, think about a square with a radius cut out of half of its width, that's going to just become a perfect circle. There's a shorthand for that. I can just say 50%, which is just 50% of the width, and I will always get a circle. So it can be nice to add like a circular element. It can be a really easy thing to understand and to look at. Also notice that I'm using border, so you can also have like a border on the image, and that could be part of a design element that you liked. I don't like the space between there. Let me move that space around. Alright, so there now I've got an image in the background. This is very similar to just putting an image in, but because I use the background size, I get to easily change its shape, change its size with CSS, which can be a little bit handier. So the key thing here is background with the URL, and then a background size, cover, border radius. Now notice this doesn't have any alt text, so in terms of accessibility, we're assuming this image is just a design element, and if someone were using a screen reader, the image really doesn't matter at all.